so honored to be with you in the flesh. Hopefully you have been following along with the blog post either via the Center website or the PCUSA website and have been following all the pictures that Andrew Yeager Buckley have been posting. We are so grateful to be here. So, Baltimore. We've received quite a bit of news lately, haven't we? I think the words were disgusting and rodent-infested mess, or was it no human being would want to live there? I think that was my favorite. These were the words of our president, the remarks about the city we call home.
So, if you didn't know, and goodness, I do hope you know, you're in Baltimore City. And you're in the section of the city where investment has been most dense and is really pretty visible. It's pretty lovely around here. You can see the Domino Sugar sign across the way. The water's lovely. Shops and great restaurants are all over. Life is all around. It's the piece of Baltimore that city leaders, developers, and investors have decided to make beautiful. But it's only a very small slice of Baltimore. So for the next couple of minutes, we'd like to share a bit about what we've seen and experienced since moving here about 10 months ago.
Baltimore City is the mother wailing over the death of her children, and the children weeping to their mothers for food. Baltimore City is the sirens crying out from the wilderness places because blight has taken over like leprosy. Can you see it? The man so close to the cleansing water and not one person will assist him in the few steps he would take to be healed. Can you see the trees growing from the rooftops of abandoned houses, interspersed by the few with the will and the hope to survive? The hardest thing about Baltimore is not Baltimore, but learning how to live in exile when your neighbors are free. The captive and the captor dwell together. Just turn the corner and you'll see something different. Look across the street and depending on what side you're standing on, you'll see hope deferred or dream realized. The streets get cleaned or garbage cans are left overflowing. The hardest thing about being in Baltimore City is seeing how the rest of Maryland treats Baltimore. A stepchild, an orphan. The hardest thing about living in Baltimore City is becoming aware that I have become one of the exiled. Yet I have lived parts of my life like a captor. The words spoken recently are not the first time I witnessed the harsh reality that Baltimore City is in exile to the rest of Maryland, Baltimore County, and the other surrounding areas. Baltimore City is a warning to the rest of America's cities. Do not ignore the weeping, the wailing, the shouts of injustice, and the dead silence. Can you see it? Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? Just last week, I was working in West Baltimore, the area being tweeted about, with part of a group of students who live just across the Baltimore County line. 3 men, their adult advisor and I, arrived at the gymnasium of St. Edward's Catholic Church to see what would become 50+ people campers, counselors, adults in an open space, cooled off by a few industrial-sized fans and a very slight breeze blowing in the entryway. It was breakfast time. Cereal one day, Rice Krispie treats and applesauce another day because resilience is key. Mother sat in the corner near the back. Miss Barber was the timeout section of the camp. Her mahogany skin still smooth, though she had reached the age of an elder. Her smile bright and sparse, I became her favorite. At times when the movement of camp would be so quick and chaotic, I'd go and put myself in timeout for a while. A hug and a laugh would revitalize my energy to make it through the next hour or so. I challenged her to keep showing up, and she challenged me to do likewise. I learned she had 6 children and several grand. She bought a house just up the street from the camp, one of the few people, and may I know, people of color, I have met who own a home in the city. This camp, mixed with science, Bible study, environmental awareness, was a daycare for working parents, a reprieve for tired grandparents, and a safe zone for a growing generation. A place for learning to continue, reading, writing, and math. This one open space and the small church on the corner a block away served as the emergency heat location and was a balm to the exile. Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention?
Baltimore does have rats, you know. Really well-fed rats. Rats bigger than anywhere else's rats. I've seen some. Accidentally picked up a gigantic frozen one once when I was picking up candy wrappers, broken bottles, an old newspaper in a local garden one day this past winter. Can't really say all of the kids I spend time with here in Baltimore enjoy that rat level of food access. At some of the camps that the center has helped support this summer, lunch and snack are provided. And most times, pockets are stuffed with granola bars and Pop-Tart packets for later. At that same camp, actually just this past week, I was drawing with chalk with a couple of neighborhood kids. We were outside in their local park, on a section of road between a field and a playground, on a piece of asphalt that felt as hot as the surface of the sun. And as we were kicking around chalk drawing ideas and picking out colors, I noticed a couple of needle caps lying around. Before I knew it, I caught myself trying to cover them up with my feet. I didn't want the kids to see them. In all likelihood, they probably already had. Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? If you spent any time around me these past 10 months, you've absolutely heard me talk about this one garden in particular, the Glenwood Life Recovery Garden, which is located directly across the street from Glenwood Life Counseling Center. Glenwood Life is a methadone treatment facility for people in recovery from opioid addiction. The garden and the treatment center are located in a Baltimore neighborhood that 5 years ago had a 60% vacancy rate. Since its beginning, just a few years back, the garden has been a place for the neighborhood residents to sink their hands in soil, experience beauty, pick some fresh produce. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I have 10 months worth of falling in love with this place to tell you about. The change I've witnessed in above ground planting beds, in an empty field full of cinder blocks, in others' lives and in mine, is a sermon series all its own. So I'll just tell you about Monday. I was in the garden with Mel, a group of visitors from a Presbyterian church in Maryland, and a couple other local supporters of the garden. And of course, the woman who had the dream for the garden just a couple years ago, Precious. It was a sunny, sunny day this past Monday, and after we all got to know each other a little bit, we got to work. We were watering the new native plant garden, harvesting carrots, filling carton after carton with these bright orange cherry tomatoes, and mixing in new nutrient-dense compost with the rocky soil of the beds. So toward the middle of the day, Mel and I are taking a water break, and a couple of the clients from Glenwood Life come over, and they pick up a conversation. They tell us a little bit about themselves, and we tell them a little bit about us. And they shared with us their ideas for which plants and trees they think the garden needed next. This couple shared that they'd love to see a peach tree, maybe a pear tree, one of these days. Mel and I agreed. A peach tree and a pear tree would be great additions to what the garden already has to offer. I found myself envisioning them behind the back beds, near where the watermelon vines are near the fence. As we were wrapping up our conversation together, and just before the couple turned around to walk away, the gentleman turned to Mel and I and said, "You know something? There's a reason this garden doesn't have rats. You know why that is?" Mel and I looked at each other and admitted, actually no, we didn't know why this beautiful garden, full of yummy food and healthy plants to munch on, wasn't crawling with rats all the time. And in a sentence that felt immediately affecting and so timely, he said, "There are no rats here because y'all are tending the land. People are always over here tending the land, and rats don't like to go places that are well taken care of." Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention?
Baltimore embodies two polarities and a smattering of everything in between. One, vacant streets, boarded up houses, violence, needle caps, hunger, loss, and urgent desperation. Another, new life, a deep sense of pride, creativity born out of necessity, kids playing, folks sitting on the front stoops checking in on each other.
The cigarette butts that Mel and I picked up yesterday on the York Road corridor will be back in a couple of days. And the cherry tomatoes from Glenwood's garden that we picked carton after carton of on Monday, these little balls of orange sunshine, they'll be back in a matter of days too.
So we'd like to close our time by inviting you to close your eyes for a moment.
We want you to travel with us for just a mile.
In this mile, there are tree-lined streets and several homes with planters of all sizes and shapes, filled with flowers, grasses, and crawling vines.
In the early morning and evening, cars line both sides of the street, bumper to bumper.
Even the side streets are filled and adorned with party lights that shine like stars at night.
Are you seeing all of this?
Along this section of the mile, houses have painted mailboxes, and the house numbers are uniquely crafted. Political bumper stickers, yard signs are hard to miss.
Blocks and blocks of green space, trees, ponds, and play areas.
Now, we're turning slightly westward, and there are fewer cars. Not as many trees lining the street. The homes look a little smaller, and the residential area is now peppered with corner stores.
There aren't planters or varieties of flowers that adorn the front steps. A few window boxes here and there, but mostly the vacancy or piles of trash catch your eyes first.
The side streets are mostly narrow alleys, and there are no lights overhead.
Keep your eyes closed. We still haven't gone a full mile yet.
Now, we come to a playground across from an elementary school.
There's a large tree casting shade over a faded blue swing set and slide.
There's a good amount of trash on the ground. If it's closer to trash day, the one corner can is filled to the brim.
Someone's asleep on that bench over there, and I think I see another pair of legs sticking out from the awning that way.
Can you see all of this? The alleys are pungent with waste and debris.
In this section, there are a few boarded up houses.
We're not in Baltimore.
So maybe it takes you further than a mile to notice divisions back home. Maybe noticing only happens when you accidentally take the wrong freeway exit. Perhaps you cross train tracks. Maybe the division where you're from is between who owns the land and who tends it. We're not just talking about Baltimore.
We are any place where boundaries, redlining, block busting, segregation, voter suppression, food deserts, cultural and social boundaries divide us from one another and have been permitted to be the norm.
We're in your city. We are in your town. How stark of a contrast do you encounter on your mile drive? Are you paying attention?
Are you paying attention?
Are you paying attention?